4 college students, brutally killed in the middle of the night. No immediate arrests, no clear motive, and absolutely no answers. For weeks, a paralyzed nation watched investigators search for a phantom, a killer seemingly hiding in plain sight. Then suddenly, one name changed the entire trajectory of the case: Bryan Kohberger.
But the biggest question still hangs heavy over this entire legal proceeding. Did investigators truly find the right suspect, or will the evidence actually be enough to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt? We're going to pull back the curtain on this investigation. We'll examine the core facts, the prosecution's foundational evidence, and the fierce, calculated pushback from the defense. We need to look at exactly how this case was built, piece by piece, and why it has utterly captivated the nation. Section 1. A town paralyzed by fear. To grasp the immense stakes of this impending courtroom battle, we first have to understand the nightmare that set it all into motion.
November 13, 2022. On this chilling morning, the quiet, picturesque college town of Moscow, Idaho, was irrevocably transformed. It instantly became ground zero for one of America's most shocking, heavily scrutinized murder investigations. In a matter of hours, the profound sense of safety in this tight-knit academic community was completely shattered.
4 University of Idaho students were found fatally stabbed inside their off-campus home: Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernel, and Ethan Chapin. The attack happened in the dead of night, while most of the victims were sleeping. The sheer, terrifying brutality of the crime sent shockwaves across the country. Parents were terrified for their kids, students were looking over their shoulders, and local investigators were suddenly crushed under the enormous pressure to find whoever stole these 4 young lives.
In those agonizing early days, nothing made sense. No immediate arrests, no publicly named suspect. Law enforcement kept their cards close to the chest, offering very few answers, which created a massive information vacuum. And you know what happens in a void like that? Rumors spread like wildfire across social media. Millions of armchair detectives tried to solve the mystery themselves. Every desperate press conference was picked apart by the public, who were holding on to hope for just one major breakthrough.
Section 2. Hiding in plain sight. The investigation shifts. Eventually, that deafening silence was broken. Weeks into the manhunt, the investigation took a dramatic, totally unexpected turn. Authorities announced the arrest of Bryan Kohberger. But what really stunned the public wasn't just that they had someone in custody, it was who they had in custody. Kohberger was a criminology PhD student studying right across the border in Washington state. The irony was chilling. People couldn't help but wonder, how does someone actively studying the criminal justice system become the primary target of one of the most complex manhunts in American history? Now, as we dive into this, it's absolutely crucial to separate the charges from the legal reality. Prosecutors allege that Kohberger committed these brutal killings, but Kohberger has vehemently denied these allegations. He pleaded not guilty. Under the American justice system, he remains completely presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. So the focus rapidly shifted from who did they arrest to what exact evidence do they actually have.
Section 3. Forensic evidence, the prosecution's case. You have to understand, this wasn't solved by a single smoking gun left at the scene. It was a massive puzzle, built upon hundreds of meticulously assembled details. Detectives combed the crime scene, collected forensic evidence, and scrubbed through countless hours of surveillance footage. According to prosecutors, their breakthrough rests on 4 main pillars: DNA recovered during the investigation, surveillance images of a white Hyundai Elantra circling the area, incredibly detailed cell phone records, and a web of digital data. Prosecutors maintain that it's the combination, the synthesis of all these findings that solidifies their case against him.
Using that digital trail, authorities reconstructed what they report are the suspect's movements. Hours before the crime, cell phone pings allegedly begin to map out a distinct route. Right around the suspected time of the murders, cameras spot a white Hyundai Elantra navigating the dark streets near the victim's home. Then, hours after the incident, those cell phone pings and digital data resume. The prosecution argues that when you lock these chronological pieces onto an evidence board, all the arrows point directly toward Bryan Kohberger. But remember, an allegation is not a conviction. Section 4. The defense strikes back, challenging the evidence. Kohberger's defense team hasn't just sat back. They have aggressively challenged this forensic narrative every step of the way. The contrast between these 2 legal strategies is stark. On one side, you have the prosecution asserting that the DNA and the reconstructed timeline establish guilt without question. On the flip side, the defense insists this forensic analysis is deeply flawed and must be scrutinized. They're challenging the investigation's methods, disputing how key evidence like the timeline is being interpreted, and arguing firmly that the prosecution has simply failed to meet their heavy burden of proof.
Section 5. Inside the courtroom. The trial begins. When those courtroom doors finally opened, the wild online speculation was replaced by strict, high-stakes legal combat.
Inside, every single piece of evidence is a battleground. Witness testimony is being intensely scrutinized by the defense. Complex forensic reports are being heavily debated. Those digital records and exactly how police collected them are being challenged at every turn. And that blurry surveillance footage of the white car, it's being dissected frame by frame. Every time a witness answers a question, it seems to just raise another incredibly complex issue for the jury to untangle.
Because ultimately, this jury is bound by the highest standard of proof in our legal system, beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to be virtually certain of the defendant's guilt before taking away his freedom. Legal experts know this trial won't be decided by public outrage or emotion. It hinges entirely on whether the prosecution's web of evidence meets that absolute, strict standard, or if the defense can successfully inject just enough doubt to force an acquittal.
Section 6. The search for justice, a lasting impact. The footprint of this tragedy stretches so far beyond a single courtroom. It's forced universities everywhere to completely rethink campus safety. It's put a massive spotlight on how cross-state investigations rely on digital forensics, and it's sparked a huge debate about how the media and online true crime sleuths handle active, high-profile cases. But beneath all the legal maneuvering, the forensic arguments, and the media circus, there is a deeply human core to the story. For the families of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan, this has always been about one thing: seeking answers and seeking accountability. They, along with millions of people who have been gripped by this case since that very first tragic morning, are desperately waiting for the legal process to deliver a final, definitive truth.
One day, a jury's decision will close this chapter. The Bryan Kohberger trial is already cemented as one of the most intensely watched criminal cases in modern American history. But when that final verdict is eventually read aloud in a dead silent courtroom, will it finally reveal the complete truth, or will some questions remain unanswered forever?